This is Nate with Detroit Speed. Today we're going to be installing a lowering kit on this 2025 F-150 for Bruce. So we have a QA1 front and rear lowering kit. These are available for the two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive trucks, with or without a spindle. So depending on the amount of lowering you want to do, there's options for you. We've opted for 3.5 to 4 inch in the front and a 5.5 in the rear. So we've went with the spindle kit. So we have the truck on the lift, wheels off. We're going to support the rear triangle stands. First bolt we'll be taking out is up here in the front. We've loosened the front fuel tank strap, removed the rear, disconnected the fill neck, actually moved the fuel tank a little bit out of the way. We're able to remove this bolt and then reinsert it from the outside. This will get removed later, but it'll allow us to move on to the next step. Okay, so we're going to remove the bump stop from the frame. After we unthread our bump stop, it's a good idea to chase this thread with a M10 by 1.5 tap. The threads up toward the top get a little snug, undercoating, just process and manufacturing. Once that's done, we can thread in the bump stop provided with the kit. Remove the factory shocks. Set the hardware aside for reuse later on. Loosen and remove the U-bolt hardware. New U-bolts are provided with the kit. Loosen and remove the leaf spring shackle and front mount hardware. Then remove the leaf spring from the vehicle. Okay, with the leaf spring removed from the trunk, we'll remove this saddle. With the bolts removed, we'll reinstall in the opposite direction. So reuse this factory shin plate, reinstall, and install the nuts, and we'll torque these to 35 foot-pounds. Okay, so we'll remove the factory shackle. So aside the hardware, we'll install the shackle included in the kit, so we can do a 3.5 inch lowering all the way up to a 5.5 inch lowering. We want a party, so we're going to the full 5.5 inch lowering. Okay, so we'll mock up shackle off the truck. We want to install the bolt from the outside toward the inside. And then using the washer and the thin jam nut, we'll install this and lightly tighten it. We'll do final torque once it's on the vehicle. Next, we'll be installing the front leaf spring mount. So these are right and left. You can identify by this extra tab on the outside of the vehicle. So we'll install, slide the bolt through the original pivot, and then the M12s and fender washer installs in the front in our rotation hole here. Get these started, and then we'll torque into place. Reinstall the leaf spring on the underside of the axle. Raise the axle to install the flip bracket. Align the holes in the bracket with the bolts that were reversed when the leaf spring was removed. And next, we'll secure the axle to the flip kit. This upper plate has a locating pin that goes toward the front. So locate that on top of the axle. Then install your U-bolts over the top. For models with a composite leaf spring, install the provided pinion angle shim between the flip bracket and leaf spring. Okay, for the rear shocks, we're going to install crush sleeves into the poly bushings. Those fully seated. Once we have that ready to go in the truck, we're just going to loosen up all the adjusters so the shock moves nice and free. Moving over to the vehicle, we'll install the upper shock mount into the vehicle, reusing the factory hardware. Install the bolt from the outside of the truck. Then install the lower mount. Also important, orient the shock so you can easily get to the adjusters. With assembly complete, final torque all fasteners with weight on the vehicle. Moving on to the front of the truck, first steps we'll do is strip the components from the factory upright. That includes caliper, brake rotor, hub, outer tie rod, brake lines, ABS signal wire. There's a small bracket on top here. We just removed the bolt and the sway bar end link. Getting these out of the way, they will transfer over to the new spindle, but takes some weight off it, makes it easier for the next step. Okay, in the front now we have our brakes removed and our hub removed. We'll be getting ready to remove the strut assembly. To do that, we'll loosen the lower ball joint nuts, loosen the lower control arm bolts, so this is allowed to move freely. We'll support this with a triangle stand, and then remove the lower bolts and the top bolts, slowly letting the pressure off of the strut assembly. Loosen and remove the ball joint nuts. Use a ball joint separator to dislodge the ball joints from the upright. Alright, now we got our ball joints loose. To remove the spindle, push down, take this nut off, release the upper control arm, release the tie rod, take the lower ball joint nut off, remove the spindle. While you do this, make sure you have the lower arm supported. Okay, next we'll be removing the spring and strut. So we'll take pressure off of the lower control arm with our triangle stand or approve that. Remove it out of the way. Supporting the spring, just slowly let it down out of the chassis. Once you get it out, simply pops out of the lower control arm. Now we got the spring and strut out of the way. We're going to remove the lower control arm from the truck. Now that the lower control arm is removed, if you're lowering more than 1.5 inches, it's recommended to come in here and actually increase the length of this spot, similar to this, 1/2 inch. This will allow for factory alignment. Now we have the shock assembled, we'll assemble it into the vehicle. Install the upper hardware first, allowing the coilover assembly to hang. Then rotate the lower control arm into place and install the lower mounting hardware. Next, install the upright. Start onto the lower. When installing your sway bar end links, it's advised to do both sides at the same time. It eliminates the bind between both sides of the vehicle. Once we have our hub installed, reinstall the speed sensor on top. You'll need to hold your caliper kind of in place while you do this, unless you want to cut the zip tie on the line. So here at the front of the vehicle, we have our spindles installed, brakes reinstalled, coilover kit installed. We want to go ahead and set our preload on our coilovers to set our ride height. This may need adjusted depending on your preference. Once everything is complete here, we recommend taking it for a professional alignment. With the wheels reinstalled on the vehicle, lower to the ground and evaluate your ride height. To make changes to the front ride height, increase the coilover preload. To lower, decrease preload. Rear ride height can be adjusted by moving the rear shackle bolt. Prior to driving, adjust the shocks following the recommendations included in the instructions. Now go drive and enjoy your QA1 F-150 lowering kit.